Yeah, it's on that.
Yeah,
It's going to be hot, but not this hot today.
we all know, brothers.
You see what he was saying?
Yeah, this is Jeremiah 51. Thus saith the Lord Jehovah Shai, behold, I will raise up against Babylon, and against them that dwell in the midst of Rem, that rise up against me, a destroying wind. And that destroying wind is referring to the missiles, but who's going to be orchestrating them? The angels. They're orchestrating everything you see. You know, all the plagues, because the scriptures talk about in Revelations also about the seven vials. So they're in control of all the destruction. That's all I gotta say.
You're going, brother.
Because we're talking about the missiles and it's being orchestrated by the angels. Just yesterday I was doing some research on how bullets work, and it's very interesting because you know, you've got the casing and then you've got the top end, which is the bullet. It's got something on the back called a firing pin, I believe. So when the hammer hits the firing pin, it causes a chain reaction where the gunpowder just gets burnt really quick and it causes a lot of gas. That gas forces the bullet out the casing and out the barrel of the gun. Now the reason why I'm saying that is because you could look at that as a metaphor for the missiles. Because what you've got on the earth is you've got a lot of sin and wickedness taking place. That sin and wickedness is kind of like the gunpowder, and it's going to have to get burnt up. Now the mark of the beast could be an analogy for the firing pin. So once that prophecy goes down, it's going to set this chain reaction, and then missiles are going to fly.
You know what?
That's a cool way of putting it, brother.
That's a good example, because even missiles have got that. There's something called fusion. So before the explosion goes off, there's a fusion within that missile. Pop, 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 pop. Leads to a bigger bang, and that's it, that explosion. If you understand physics, but it's very complicated.
That's good though, because the reason why I was looking at the bullet is because it's like a small scale missile.
Yeah, it is.
So when you can understand it on a small scale, it gives you the understanding, like you said, of the fusion. It's just interesting to learn.
And what the bullet does when the bullet hits its target, it actually explodes. Like the hollow point bullet, that's why the hollow point bullet, like, if you were to shoot somebody with that hollow point bullet, it explodes, and what happens is your flesh just bursts to pieces.
On impact.
On impact. So it's like, so the brother's right, it's like a miniature missile, basically. Go on, brother.
Isaiah 34 and 6. The sword of the Lord, Jehovah Hashem Yahshai, is filled with blood, is made fat with fatness, with the fatness of lambs and goats, with the fat of the kidneys
and that's not literal. Although there is lambs and rams and goats and maybe in America, right? But that's not referring to that. It's referring to the people. The people are going to be the Lord's sacrifice. So they're the rams and lambs and goats that you sacrifice, as well as we did. We used to sacrifice rams and goats for sin offering. Go on.
For the Lord Jehovah Hashem Yahshai hath a sacrifice in Bozrah.
You have a sacrifice in Basra. Where's Basra? Well, modern day Basra is referring to, which is America. So America's going to be annihilated with the people in it, and they're going to be destroyed, wholly destroyed. Go on.
And a great slaughter in the land of Idumea.
And the great slaughter in the land of America. Because now what you have is the Idumeans, they're no longer in the actual land of Idumea right now, or Petra, have you will. But they're dwelling in other places, that's why. And the main place that they're dwelling in is America, and also more in particular, Europe. So wherever Esau is at, that's where their destruction is going to be. And if you check it, there's missile sightings all around in England. There's a whole lot of missile sightings in England. What I mean by that is targets. You have missile targets that are right here covering England. So you know that this place is going to be destroyed.
If I may,
go on, brother.
Yeah, you're right about that, because when you actually look at the top of these buildings, which I don't know, most of you won't see unless you're actually at the top of them, that council estate buildings, there's an X. There's a big X. So what's that X? A sign of when these nations shoot their missiles, they're going to go right up on these council estate houses. They're going to be some of the first markings as well.
Yeah, so you have missile marks. Go on, brother.
Isaiah 41 and 3 says, now the Egyptians are men and not God, and their horses are flesh and not spirit.
Yeah, and that applies to Esau. That applies to these secretive councilmen. They actually believe and think because pride, capacity with a train, they think they're lords, they're angels, they're powers, but they're really just men. They're just mere mortals, and the Lord is going to show them when He brings His angels to them. It's going to be known to them that they're just simply mere mortals, and they're not all of that in the bag of chips, right? That they think they are. Go on, brother.
when the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall.
Right, and both he that helpeth shall fall. So the ones of our people, we know that they're going to get involved in fighting the Lord, as dumb as they are in the military, which they're going to be told what to do anyway, and they're going to fail miserably. They're going to fall. It says, don't hand join in hand with the wicked. Both shall not go unpunished. See? Go on, brother.
Fall, and he that is is headlong shall fall down, and they all shall fall all together.
They shall all fall together, as well as the ancient Egyptians did. So you may have a bunch of Edomites coming to say to you, well, to us in general, because they like to say, well, our fathers, our ancient forefathers, not our ancient forefathers, our fathers owned slaves, but I didn't own a slave. Well, guess what? You still benefited of the labor of your forefathers. That's why you can enjoy the fruits of his labor and the fruits of the labor that you're putting into it, on top of the labors he's put over into it. Yeah. That's why you have a thing such as white supremacy, and you're able to live the way that you're living because of what your forefathers have done. All right? So it's equivalent to you when you go to a restaurant, right? And let's just say you go to the restaurant with your father, and you're obviously you're like the fifth sibling, so to speak, and you didn't have to spend a dime and paying for anything because your father paid for everything, right? Let's just say your father leaves. Guess what? You have to pay the tab. Somebody has to pay the tab. If your father leaves out of the restaurant, you have to pay that tab. So you can't just escape just because you didn't find yourself doing the actual labor that your forefathers have done, but you've benefited over the labors of your father. Okay? So there's no escape. So the least of these devils from the greatest among these devils, they're all going to fall right together. Right together as one, because they all have benefited over the struggles that they put people under, man.
They inherited the generational wealth of their forefathers.
That's it, and they also inherited the power from their government. Now they're going back and saying it's corrupt, but it's been corrupt. It's been corrupt, but you haven't really said anything when the government is corrupt against us as a people. Now all of a sudden, the government's corrupted against y'all, and now you feel like you gotta say something, you gotta take a stand, or we gotta protest and shit like that. But when was all of the protesting when we was getting gunned down the shop back in the 80s and 90s in New York? When was all of the hoopla then? Now all of a sudden there's this hoopla. They feel like they gotta get behind Jake, Black Lives Matter, and show and prove that we got y'all back. Listen, man, like, look, you devils are going down. There's no avoidance of judgment. You devils are gonna go down right along with these high-level devils, because you're all the same any doggone way. All right? The corruption that the powers that be that you've served, the wickedness that they have done has led you to live the way that you're living. It's led you to be successful under this guise of white supremacy. So if you benefited over this white, if it's made you who you are today and living as you are living in goodness, then guess what? You have to suffer. You have to suffer as well as what they have done, because you benefited somehow, some way from it.
Sirach 41:7, the children will complain of an ungodly father.
Right, it's like, and you know what, I'm going to go as far as saying this, and this is going to be kind of out of order to these devils. I'm going to say this. These devils are talking about Tony Blair this and Tony Blair that. He's a war criminal and just giving it lows. But guess what? You're just like Tony Blair. Okay? And I beg to believe they wish they were in Tony Blair's seat. That's why they hate the man so much. Because Tony Blair, he was licensed to kill as much people as he could back because of that lie. Back in the day, going all the way back to 2001. Okay? The early 2000s, should I say. With this whole idea that such and such has weapons of mass destruction. A lot of people died because of that, right? And British soldiers that got involved in the war too. They all died because of it, yeah? And because he's licensed to do what he did, they hate him for it. Because they really wish that they could do the same thing. Go on, brother.
Let me start off a bit. It says, Sirach 41...
That's just what I think anyway. It's like it, brother.
That's alright. Sirach 41:5. The children of sinners are abominable children.
That's it. And they're all children of sinners. So that's why the Most High has to destroy these abominable people. Because they're abominable, man. The abominable have to receive what's right and what's just. They got to be destroyed, man. They got to be destroyed to the point of no return, where we can slap chains on them and rule over them the way that we would like to, and exact vengeance upon them. Go on, brother. Because they're
Right.
abominable children.
Yep, they're abominable children, and they are conversing in the dwelling of the
And
ungodly.
they're conversing with the dwelling of the ungodly. Go on.
The inheritance of sinners' children shall perish,
Yeah.
and their posterity shall have a perpetual reproach.
Yeah, so all that they've got from their ancient forefathers and the prosperity that they got from it, it's all going to perish. It's all going to be this alone. So one can't say among these devils, oh, I don't want to be a part of this world anymore. Or I apologize for the wrongs that was done to your people, and I feel bad that I benefited from it. Yeah, well, you can say what you want to say because you living good. Like I said in my video, right? These devils can say all kind of shit because they're living nice. They got space, they got time to where they can talk that shit. They can act as though they're rebellious. But a Jake that's living in the ghetto, that have to hear gunshots and all of this other stuff, he ain't got the time, or he don't even got the time or the space to think about what's good for him. But you devils got the time and the place to think about what you don't like and what you think is good for so-called black people or whatever. Okay? While you're in that nice home of yours. Go on.
It says the inheritance of sinners' children shall... No, I read that part already. It says the children will complain of an ungodly father because they shall be reproached for his sake.
Right, because they shall be reproached for his sake. So they're going to be reproached for the sake of their fathers, man. Point blank in the story. And that's another thing that vocab alone don't want to have to focus on. Because if he's an Edomite, his ass is done. He's going to get stumped. He's going to get beat up for 1,000 years. And that's going to be his ass, basically. Go on, bro.
Yeah, going on. It says, I think that might be the end, but let's just read it. It says, yeah, woe be unto you ungodly men which have forsaken the law of the Most High Power.
Yeah.
If ye increase, it shall be to your own destruction.
Yeah.
And if ye be born, ye shall be born to a curse. And if you die, a curse shall be your portion.
Right. It's like every time when the royal family declares that they have a son, that son is just born into a world of a curse, because the world that it's born into, that it has heirs to, that it's inherited, he's going to grow up seeing that his world is going to be destroyed, it's going to be taken from him. So the greater these devils become, it's all going to lead to their destruction. That's what I was saying earlier before on the Lord building a case for this man. Because this man builds off of wickedness. He's only building because of his wickedness. So the more he builds up, the more he's coming closer and closer to that very particular point in time for the Lord to judge his ass. That's all that's happening. So it's a curse. They're building up to their curse, the ultimate curse. Okay, and speaking of that, if somebody can get me Deuteronomy 30, verse 7. Matter of fact, brother, you can get it.
Me?
Yeah. Because all of the curses that we have to deal with as a people, it's going to jump on them.
This is the book of Deuteronomy 30 verse 7. And Yahweh your power will put all these curses upon thine enemies and upon them that hate thee, which persecuted thee.
Yeah, exactly. So all of the curses that we've suffered in Deuteronomy 28 is all going to be casted upon one, from us to them. One people to another people. That's where it's going to go. So now we're going to go back to Psalms, what we was reading. I think he was in Psalms.
Yep. Well, I've got something in Psalms. I was holding Psalms 149.
Okay.
Is that what you want, or do you want something else?
Now read what you had before.
About the ungodly children?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's in Sirach, that is. Yeah, back in Sirach 41. And it says, verse 10, and all the earth shall turn to earth again, so the ungodly shall go from a curse to destruction.
They're going to go from a curse to the destruction. And ultimately, you know what? In all reality, as it stands right now, they're kind of, you can see that they are getting cursed today, even in their own society. And then they're going to be cursed to the point where they're going to see that their world is going to come apart by way of destruction. But I will say this too, the curses will continue on in the kingdom of heaven. Because these devils, these crackers will be in the kingdom of heaven, but they're going to be on a basis level.
Speak it, brother.
And when they're on that level, we're going to be able to do whatever the hell we want to do.
Man, say something. That's a good point. You can definitely see the curses of flipping I mean, even in this small lifetime we've had at this present time, we can see that the image of the so-called white man isn't as glorified as it was, say, back in the 80s or early 90s. And a lot of these so-called straight white men are complaining now because they're like, oh, it seems like it's a crime to be a straight white man now because everybody's joining on to LGBT or Black Lives Matter and stuff. These Edomite men, they're starting to feel the curses. Not as heavy as we've got them, but you can definitely see it starting because they're complaining.
It's gradually happening to them. The curses are gradually taking place and it's having an effect with them.
Yep.
You know, but the curses are going to be real on them when the kingdom of heaven is set up. And they're going to know exactly what's going on because we're going to tell them, man. We're actually going to tell them in the scriptures that this is the deal. We're telling them right now. So we may not even have to tell them in the kingdom. But somehow, some way, we're going to tell them, man. Yeah. Oh, shit. Careful. Yeah. That's why I said to just
Salakia, brother. Salakia.
There's more. I keep reading. It says, the mourning of men is about their bodies, but an ill name of sinners shall be blotted out.
But an ill name of a sinner shall be blotted out. And Esau, man, they're all about their legacy. They're not going to have no legacy of anything. Once everything is destroyed of their world, their history, and what they stood for is going to be nothing. It's going to be to nothing. It says that they won't even have no name on the street. Go on, brother.
It says, have regard to thy name, for that shall continue with thee above 1,000 great treasures of gold. A good life hath but a few days, but a good name endureth forever.
Right, but a good name endureth forever. And we're going to get access to that real soon. When the kingdom of heaven is set up, we're going to get access to a good name. Based on the works that we're putting into right now, like Yahweh Shai, the work that he did, he got access to the good name that he got. So much so that people still speak of him today. All right? That's why it says that the righteous men are written in the book of life. Or they're going to be written in the book of life.
Because there's going to be new writings. Like, if you look at time span, Abraham had a good name.
Yes.
And obviously, we know reincarnation, you come back. But when he was Abraham, till this day, people still speak about it.
Yeah.
How many thousands of years is that? You know, Joshua had a good name, Moses had a good name. So, as the elder was saying, in the kingdom, there's actually going to be new writings of what the elect did on the earth. So there's going to be new books, new accounts, new records.
Yeah.
And our names are going to live on. Well, we're going to live forever, the elect. But, you know, our reputations will just keep going on and on, man. Like, you were those guys that in the old world that did all of this.
Yeah. That's it.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, if you can, yeah, we wanted to say something.
This is something, brothers probably seen the film Gladiator, right? There was a tagline associated with that film and it said, what you do in life echoes in eternity.
Yes.
So that's, Lord willing, if we be those men, our works are going to echo throughout all of eternity and never be blotted out from the Lamb's Book of Life.
Yeah, if you can you go back and read Psalms 68 verse 17, you get that? And then somebody get Revelations 5 and 11.
I'll get Rev.
This is Psalm 68 and 17. The chariots of the Most High are 20,000.
Because what I want to get back to is what happened to the Syrian king and also his people, where you had 200,000 just about that died because of the angel. And they were all dead corpses as it reads. So the same angels are going to come past the earth and defend his people once again. It says, as birds flocking, so shall the Lord defend Jerusalem. That's in Isaiah 31, verse 5. So the Lord is going to defend us. Okay? Because you have Esau, they have their own government, they have their national security, and even among these other nations, they have their little security. But we also have a security. And it's a spiritual, holy security which will pursue this earth. And it will be a threat to all of these national securities that are here on this earth. Go on, brother.
The Lord, Salakia, even thousands of angels, the Lord Yahweh Shai is among them, as in Sinai in the holy place.
There you go. So let's get Revelation 5 verse 11.
Right, Revelation chapter 5 and verse 11 reads, it says, and I beheld and I heard the voice of many angels round about the throne, and the beasts and the elders, and the number of them was 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands.
There's a couple of scriptures that we just brought out and showing that the angels in heaven, which are the chariots, which are coming in different forms, are coming by the thousands, because obviously there are thousands of them. And then you have the head spirit, the begotten son, he's coming back too. So that's what you call God-like, that's what you call Yahweh-like power, basically. So much so, like, if Yahweh actually came down on the earth, we would all die, we would all be destroyed. Even his creation would be destroyed. Because that's the power he has. But when the chariots come back, the chariots are going to somewhat mimic his power. All right?
Yeah,
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but a lot of people get mixed up when it says like the Lord came down on Mount Sinai, even though it says the name Yahweh, like L-O-R-D in all caps, it's talking of Yahweh Shai. It wasn't the Most High that actually came down in the chariot.
Yeah.
Oh no.
If the Lord did that,
No way. No way.
This whole creation would be destroyed.
That's why Colossians 1 and 15 says the image of the invisible power.
Yeah.
So when it was the Most High talking to like Moses or whatever, it was actually via Yahweh Shai. Directly.
Because the Most High is so on a whole other level, you can't even look at him. Moses couldn't look at the Most High. So he couldn't come down here. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm saying is the power that is coming here on this earth is going to be equivalent to the power of the Most High himself. Or just about, I would say. Yeah, so, get me Psalms 20, verse 7 to verse 9. Anybody can get it.
I just got a quick one for you.
Okay, yeah, go on.
On what Yeremiah was saying. Exodus 33 and 20, and he said, "Thou canst not see my face, for there shall no man see my face and live."
Exactly. Because if you were to look at the Most High's face, you'd be in a spiritual room right now.
Instant KO.
Yeah. And that glory, that proves that Yahweh Shai, because the scriptures tell us that you have your earthly body, then in the heavens you have your celestial body. It's another body your spirit steps into, man. And the only people that saw Yahweh Shai in his glorified state on the earth was Peter and John, and I believe James in the Transfiguration, because beside him Moses and Elijah came and they were all in their heavenly state. But what proves that point, what you're talking about, is that Moses asked to see the Lord's back. So it was actually Yahweh Shai, but it was in his glorified state. And even then he couldn't see Yahweh Shai, man. Yeah. So what he did was he said, no, so like he asked to see his face. Let me get it right. And then he said, no, I'm going to put my hand past you and walk behind you. And when I walk behind you, you'll see the back of me. So Moses actually saw the back of Yahweh Shai in his glorified state, but not his face, because he would have dead.
That's what it is, man. Yes, so get the Psalms. Somebody get Psalms 20, verse 7 to 9.
This is Psalms 20 and verse 9. Hold on a minute. 21 verse 9.
No, 20 to verse 7 to 9.
This is 20, Psalm 20 and 7. Some trust in chariots and some in horses. But we will remember the name of the Lord, Yahweh Shai, our power.
And in order for us to remember his name, we would have to know his name. So again, this goes back to the point of the matter. So when the Lord comes back, he's coming to defend us. With all of that power he's coming back with, he's going to be unstoppable. And our expectation, as it says, of the righteous shall not perish. So Esau is already lost. That's why I was emphasizing earlier before on how Esau has already lost. Because now the Pentagon, they're now having to be aware of the angels, as they call UAPs or UFOs. And even Obama said something about it too, briefly. He said something briefly about it. But he was on his show, and the show was kind of like making mockery of the whole idea of those.
No, he was saying, Salaki, he was saying something like you must don't think about what is above, think about what is, take concern of things below in earth now. You know what I mean? That's what he was saying.
Yeah,
so he was dismissing that, you know what I mean? Definitely dismissing that.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing about it is Esau, no, what was I talking about? I was talking about Obama. Yeah, Obama was on the show. Yeah. This mockery show, more of a satire show or something like that. And when he was talking about the UFOs, a lot of laughing and giggling, and I'll talk about it when I get the chance to. But he was saying something to the effect of, we don't know what these things are and what they actually are all about. In many other words, as I'm saying it, yeah. And what he also said was, he said that we're going to have to defend in a roundabout way. We have to make sure that we defend ourselves and this and that and the third. So if it's a joke, then why do you feel like you have to defend yourself over something you think is a joke? Because really, in all reality, they want people to think it's a joke while they know the truth. And the truth of the matter is that they are the angels of God. That's something that they know is the truth. But they don't want you to know that it's the truth. They don't want to give people the idea that God and his army is coming back on the earth. Because if people get access to that kind of knowledge and understanding, now people are going to be quick, fast to change their life and live in a different way of living after the scriptures. And therefore, the so-called Jews that rule at the very top, that control the media, have no power. They lose their power.
Yeah, people wouldn't care. When you think about it, like Yahushua said, I'm from above, you are from beneath.
Yeah.
Like, when you know the truth, you just don't care anymore about this world, man. You have no affiliation. So if the reason, as the elders say, the reason why they're trying to hide it is because once the mass population know that, Esau no longer has his grip on
That's
people.
it, brother.
Because his grip is, I have to work a 9 to 5, I have to do this, I have to make this my children, the kids, the mortgage, the bills, the house. But when you know that there's more to come, you don't care about the mediocre bullshit you got now. You know, so his grip would totally be just loosened, man.
Yeah, and people will not look at them as the power anymore.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be thinking to themselves, well, damn, if that's the case, like I said, I need to change my life.
Yeah.
And it's going to have to be up to the Bible, because I don't want to be destroyed.
May I add something to what you both are saying? It's a good point, because what Esau has done, one of his most subtlest tricks, is that he's got everybody thinking that the Bible is an old-fashioned book about people walking through the desert in sandals and living an old-fashioned life, when there's things in the Bible which are on the level of Star Wars. You know what I'm saying? But people don't know that. They just look at the Bible and think, oh, that's old-fashioned, when really the future is in this book, and the chariots and all these great things you see in science fiction all come from the Bible. But Esau's tricked the people not to know that. So when they look at Esau's technology, they think, oh, that's great. That's incredible.
That's a good point too, yeah.
But really, the Bible's got much greater than that.
The technology that's in the scriptures is actually more advanced than what we've got now, because it did a rise and a dip and then it rose again, right? So at the start, technology was much further. For example, the Tower of Babel, right? It said that they were planning to build it to the heavens. Now, you have to think to yourself, why did the Most High confuse their languages? Because it was possible, right? It was possible for them to actually, now when they say to, not obviously to the spirit realm, but to get into that level of space or whatever, they could have accomplished it. That's why the Lord had to disrupt their languages and confuse them. I can't remember where it is, but it's also in the Apocrypha somewhere, where it talks about the machineries which created electricity. When you really get into it, under floor heating and all of that, it's actually all in there, man. The scripture, I need to find it. I'll find it, but it says the machineries which did build to make vast buildings, man. And that's technology we don't have now. You know, it was us back then that built the pyramids in our slavery, but all now they're confused as to how they even made it, man. You know, so engineering has actually gone backwards, man, from where it used to be.
It's actually decreased.
But you know, it's pride of the people that makes them think that, oh, we're so much better than, oh, that's old-fashioned, they didn't know much back then. So it's the pride of the people that makes them think they're puffed up and that we're living a futuristic life now. When the Bobby Rama just broke it down, we ain't.
And you know, too, when you look at mankind, we've dwindled in size, too. We were much more greater in size, we were much more greater in wisdom and understanding. Now, the average individual is like, what, 5'10"? That's the average height now, but the average height back thousands of years ago, man was like standing like 8 feet tall, 10 feet tall and shit, you know?
And if I may say, the men were more spiritual back then.
Yeah.
Because even when Jonah escaped into that ship, what were the men saying? They were saying they were casting a lot. Because they knew what he was what, a Hebrew, and what he had the power. So again, and they even said they prayed, I think did they pray? That they would not be put to death because of Jonah. So men were more spiritual back then.
Yep, that as well.
So like even the Pharaoh, when he took Abraham's wife Sarah, the Most High jacked his ass up and he's like, why didn't you tell me that she was your wife? You told me that was your sister. He was kind of like I shouldn't have been doing this. You put me in a bad position now. So people are more spiritual back then.
And I'm gonna send you an article to one of you brothers, right? Because even the Moabites, they're also investigating the chariots as well.
Wow.
And I say, if the UFOs, as they call them, or the UAPs are a joke, why are these countries investigating them? Why is the Pentagon investigating as well as the Chinese investigating at the same time if it's a joke?
Esau's tried desperately to control the narrative of the chariots, because when he puts out, like we was talking last week, films like Close Encounters, Independence Day, E.T., he tries to put it out there that, oh, they're out there, but we know what they're about, and they're either like friendly little aliens coming down to like be domesticated
I've sent you the
pets.
article.
Friendly little aliens to be domesticated pets, or those big head grey aliens who want to probe us and stuff. They're putting out all this disinformation, and this information, although it's fiction, it sits in these people's minds, so they think, oh that's what's out there. So people don't get bugged out when they realise, hang on a minute, it's actually angels in this. That's going to really mess people up when they realise what really is in those chariots.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Go on, brother.
So this is an RT article, and it says Chinese military has its own UFO task force, and it's being overwhelmed by a surge in sighting reports. So it says the Pentagon isn't alone in investigating strange objects spotted in the skies. According to reports, the Chinese military has also been tracking UFOs, and in recent years has registered an uptick in sightings. The People's Liberation Army (PLA) uses a three-tiered system to investigate instances of unidentified air conditions, a euphemism reminiscent of U.S. military terms for UFO, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Yeah, so as the brother just read, in recent years they started doing investigations. So we don't know how many years they've been doing it, but we haven't really got knowledge of that. Like the media hasn't really been putting that out on how they've even done research on it, and still doing it to this very moment in time. But you know it's heavy though, because there's a scripture that I'm looking for as he's reading, where it says that the Lord will visit Moab as well, because the Lord is going to visit the shores of Moab too. I'm going to see if I can find that scripture.
Because Moab thinks that they're next in rule.
Yeah.
If Esau was to ever go down, the whole world's looking at Moab as if they're going to be the next ones to rise up.
I found something. I'm not sure if this is it. This is Isaiah 15.
That might be it. Go on.
The burden of Moab. Because it is in the night of Moab, it is laid waste and brought to silence. Because in the night, care of Moab is laid waste and brought to silence. He is gone up to Bejeth and to Dibon, and the high places to weep. Moab shall wail over Nebo and over Mediba. Am I saying it right?
you go all right.
That's the way I'm saying it.
Yes.
On all their heads shall be baldness, and every bed cut off. And in their streets shall they gird themselves with sackcloth.
Now that's talking about something else. Let me think, man.
But it feeds the point though, because Moab is very proud, man.
Yeah.
When you check it, Moab is very proud, and their whole setup is to think